The Texas summer sun beat down mercilessly on the extensive grounds of the Howard family estate. Laura Howard stood on the front porch of the mansion, took a deep breath, and opened the heavy door. The subtle tension she felt each time she returned home remained unchanged. "Laura, you've finally arrived," said her mother Martha, whose expression mixed relief and fatigue as she emerged from the living room. She rushed to Laura and gave her a light embrace. "The plane was a bit delayed." "I'm sorry," Laura smiled gently. "Is everything going smoothly with the preparations?" "Yes, almost everything is ready for tomorrow's celebration. Your father and Brittany are in a final meeting right now." There was a hint of bitterness in Martha's voice. She had always been the mediator in this family. Being caught between her eldest daughter, her youngest child, and her stubborn husband was part of her role. "How's Dad?" Laura asked as she set down her luggage. "The same as always. He asked about you. How's that office job in New York going?" Laura sighed softly. The term office job that she had conveyed to her family was an explanation within the range her father George could understand. The reality was far more complex and substantial, but she had learned years ago that trying to explain would be futile. "Well, tell him it's going fine," she said lightly. A voice came from the study, and soon Laura's sister Brittany appeared. She was dressed in a perfect business suit with a confident smile on her face. "You came." Brittany rushed to Laura and gave her a glamorous kiss on the cheek. "What do you think?" "Surprised?" "I've become a department head." "Congratulations, that's truly wonderful," Laura sincerely congratulated her. She felt a mix of genuine happiness for her sister's success and complex emotions about her own place in the family. "Laura," a low, powerful voice resonated, and George Howard emerged from the study. His dignified presence embodied the pride of being the founder of Howard Construction. "Dad, it's been a while," Laura said calmly. George merely nodded slightly and immediately returned to the topic of Brittany. "Almost all the key figures in the industry will attend tomorrow's celebration. After all, our family has finally produced a department head in a first-rate company." There was obvious pride in his voice. This was a reaction never seen when Laura had told her family about her ordinary office job. "Laura, I've hung your dress in the closet," Martha hurriedly said. "Let's make tomorrow a wonderful day for the whole family." That evening at dinner, the conversation was entirely dominated by Brittany's promotion and future prospects. George raised his wine glass and proudly declared, "Brittany, you are truly the pride of the Howard family. Your attitude of constantly moving toward your goals and never giving up has brought about today's success." Brittany responded with a beaming smile. "Thank you, Papa. Everything I've learned from you has made me who I am today." Laura continued eating in silence. For her, the role of the ordinary daughter in this family was something she had accepted for years. The underperforming eldest daughter. The one with a stable job but no particularly brilliant achievements. The child who couldn't meet the family's expectations. "Laura, how's life in New York? Are you still working at that small company?" George suddenly asked. "Yes, the same company," Laura answered calmly. "Why don't you consider a real career someday? There's still a chance to work for a large corporation like Brittany." "I'm satisfied with my current job, Dad." George clicked his tongue. "It's too early to be satisfied. You should be capable of greater things." "George," Martha quietly restrained him. "Laura has chosen her own path." After dinner, Laura stood alone on the terrace, gazing up at the night sky. At tomorrow's celebration, she would once again play the role of the sister in the shadow of her successful sister. Still, she had no regrets about her choices. On the day of the celebration, Laura dressed in the elegant navy dress her mother had prepared. The simple yet sophisticated design suited her well but was certainly not going to outshine her sister, the star of the day. As she made her final adjustments in front of the mirror, she tried to calm her nerves. The hall of the Howard mansion was already bustling with local dignitaries. Texas oil tycoons to construction industry executives, George's network was extensive, and they had all gathered to celebrate Brittany's promotion. Laura stood modestly at the entrance, smiling and exchanging greetings. "May I have your attention, please?" George stood at the podium and took the microphone. "I sincerely thank you all for gathering here today to celebrate the promotion of my beloved daughter, Brittany Howard." The venue fell silent, and all eyes turned to George. "I have always wished for my children to forge their own paths. Brittany has shown extraordinary talent and passion from a young age, consistently exceeding my expectations." George paused, overcome with emotion, and continued. "Her appointment today as the youngest department head at Burton International is the greatest pride for the Howard family." Applause erupted, and Brittany stood beside her father, bathed in the spotlight. Her radiant smile and confident posture were certainly worthy of admiration. Laura applauded quietly, sincerely celebrating her sister's success. "Papa, thank you for giving me this opportunity." Brittany took the microphone and expressed her gratitude. "I've come this far because of your guidance and support." Laura stood at the edge of the venue with a wine glass in hand. No one was paying attention to her. Today, Laura Howard was just the sister in the shadow of her successful sister. 12 years ago, Laura had graduated from Princeton University's business school with excellent grades. Despite offers from major companies, she was captivated by the potential of an emerging technology company and decided to join it. A foolish choice, George frowned upon hearing her decision. A stable, large corporation is the place to build a career. Who knows when that small company will go under? "But, Papa, their technology is innovative and has the potential to transform the market," Laura explained enthusiastically, but her father's expression remained unchanged. "Don't be a dreamer. Look at reality." A few years later, when that small company faced a management crisis, Laura made a big decision. She invested all her severance pay and personal savings to acquire the company's core technology division. At 28, she established a new company called HL International and began developing the business based on that technology. "Let me know if you need financial assistance," her father offered at the time, but behind those words was the irony of, "I told you so if you fail." "I'll be fine, I'll manage on my own," Laura firmly declined. She had decided to live by her own convictions, unswayed by her family's expectations or evaluations. The first 2 years were tough. She failed many times, faced financial difficulties repeatedly, and nearly gave up multiple times. But she persevered and gradually achieved results. In the 5th year, a major breakthrough came when her environmental technology system was adopted by several major corporations, and HL International suddenly gained industry attention. Laura deliberately avoided the limelight and minimized media exposure. While the name and face of founder Laura Howard were known, she chose to be an anonymous success story. This wasn't just out of humility but from a strong desire to be evaluated solely on her own merits. She kept the truth from her family as well. She told them she worked in an office job in New York and continued to hide her actual success. Perhaps it was pride. She wanted to reveal the fact that the underestimated daughter had actually achieved great success at the most effective timing, especially to her father. HL International grew rapidly and now invests in more than 30 companies, demonstrating leadership in fields ranging from environmental technology to AI. Laura had been selected as one of Forbes magazine's most influential women entrepreneurs, but she never mentioned this in front of her family. Ironically, 3 years ago, she had secretly supported Burton International, the company where Brittany worked, when it faced a management crisis. She provided funding and management guidance to prevent the company's bankruptcy. No one knew, but her sister's promotion was indirectly possible because of her support. "Laura, what are you thinking about?" Brought back to reality by her mother Martha's voice, Laura smiled. "Nothing special. It's wonderful to see Brittany shining." Martha gently stroked her daughter's arm. "You're walking your own path too. There are different forms of success for each person." "Thank you, Mom." Martha was about to say something but swallowed her words as George approached. "How do you like the celebration?" George asked Laura. "You should have big goals like your sister." Laura smiled calmly. Yes, Dad. We all walk our own paths. Absolutely. But you should choose a path you can walk proudly, like Brittany. George looked around and proudly continued. Today's success is proof of her talent and effort. The only pride of our family. Laura said nothing to those words. She quietly took a sip of wine and looked around the venue. If her business partners and investors were here, they would immediately show her respect. But today, in this place, she was just Brittany's sister. And that was also the position she herself had chosen. The celebration was at its peak. With champagne being poured and elegant music playing, Brittany was at the center of the venue as the shining star. Laura modestly joined in conversations and exchanged greetings with young Burton employees whom she had cared for like younger brothers. It's time for speeches again. George took the microphone and stood on stage once more. His expression was filled with pride and confidence. Once again, we've gathered today to celebrate Brittany Howard's promotion. Applause rose from the venue. Brittany climbed onto the stage with a radiant smile and stood next to her father. I have always held high expectations for my children, George continued with a stern expression. To succeed in the business world, one needs talent, effort, and sound judgment. Brittany possesses all of these. For a moment, he turned his eyes toward Laura. There seemed to be a slight disappointment in his gaze. Unfortunately, not all children walk the same path. However, Brittany is undoubtedly the pride of our family. Her success is unique and unparalleled for our family. The venue responded with sympathetic laughter and applause. Martha glanced at Laura with an apologetic expression. But Laura maintained a gentle smile as she listened to her father's speech. I also want to thank the executives of Burton International. I'm grateful for recognizing my daughter's talent and giving her such a wonderful opportunity, George continued. Especially to President Richard and Department Head Christopher, I cannot express my gratitude enough. The designated department head Christopher Jenkins stood up and nodded slightly. In his mid-40s, he was one of the central figures involved in Burton's management reconstruction. Now, let's hear a few words from Department Head Christopher, representing Burton International. Christopher took the stage and received the microphone. Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful gathering today. Brittany is indeed a person of remarkable talent. Her passion and decisiveness are great assets to our company. He smiled at Brittany, then looked around the venue. Actually, Burton faced a serious crisis 3 years ago. We were even on the brink of bankruptcy. At that point, his gaze stopped on Laura. His expression froze for a moment. Wait a minute. Christopher stammered. Is that? The audience's attention focused on where he was looking, at Laura. Aren't you Ms. Laura Howard? The CEO of HL International? A silence spread across the venue. The color drained from Brittany's face, and Father George looked between Laura and the department head with a confused expression. I never imagined meeting Ms. Howard here. Christopher hurriedly descended from the podium and walked toward Laura. I never thought I would meet you in a place like this. He bowed deeply before Laura. Ladies and gentlemen, the fact that I am standing here today, that Burton has survived, is all thanks to Ms. Laura Howard. The venue was filled with murmurs. Everyone was staring at Laura. During our management crisis 3 years ago, without the investment and guidance from HL International, our company would have undoubtedly gone bankrupt. Ms. Howard's foresight and strategic advice rebuilt today's Burton. Brittany stood dumbfounded, staring at her sister. Father George was speechless, holding firmly onto his chair. I apologize for the late introduction. I am Christopher Jenkins, he bowed to Laura again. Without your support, we wouldn't be here today. On behalf of all Burton employees, I extend our deepest gratitude. Laura maintained a composed expression, but inwardly her feelings were complex. She hadn't anticipated the truth being revealed in such a manner. Mr. Jenkins, it's nice to meet you, she responded quietly. Burton's remarkable recovery is the result of the efforts of your employees. I simply believed in that potential. Christopher shook his head. No, what you did was far more than just investment. Strategic guidance, industry connections, and above all, believing in us, all of these saved us. He took the microphone again and said to the audience, "Ladies and gentlemen, for those who may not know, Ms. Laura Howard is the founder and CEO of HL International. She has been selected as one of the top 10 most influential women entrepreneurs by Forbes magazine and is driving innovation in fields ranging from environmental technology to AI." A murmur arose from the venue, eventually turning into applause. Many guests approached Laura, seeking handshakes. To think that Brittany's sister was the Laura Howard. I didn't know such a big shot came from the Howard family. I listened to your lecture at the Technology Summit 3 years ago. I was impressed. Amid the rising voices of admiration, George and Brittany still seemed unable to recover from the shock. George's face was pale, and Brittany was frozen with an expression mixing confusion and anger. Only Martha quietly smiled and approached Laura. "I always thought I would find out someday," she whispered softly. "That you were successful in New York. But to think it was such a big success." "Mom, I'm sorry for hiding it," Laura took her mother's hand. "There's nothing to apologize for. You must have had your reasons." Martha's eyes shone with pride. "If there's a lesson your father should learn now, it's the danger of hasty judgment." Laura took a deep breath. The venue was still in an excited state, but she began walking slowly toward the stage, maintaining her composure. Laura stood on stage and took the microphone. The venue fell completely silent, with all eyes on her. Though she was accustomed to public speaking for many years, this moment was entirely different. She was facing the most difficult audience, speaking about her true self in front of her family. "Hello, everyone," Laura began in a calm voice. "Today is a day to celebrate Brittany's promotion. And her success is truly worthy of celebration." She glanced at Brittany, who still wore a dumbfounded expression. "However, since my background has unexpectedly become a topic, I would like to take a moment of your time." Taking a deep breath, Laura continued. "I am the founder of HL International and serve as its CEO. We operate in environmental technology, sustainable energy, and AI fields, and currently invest in more than 30 companies." Her voice gradually became more confident. This was her everyday self, Laura Howard, the business leader. 12 years ago, I made a decision. I chose to join a small company with potential rather than a stable, large corporation. When that company faced a management crisis, I took a risk, acquired the core technology division, and established HL International. Voices of respect and surprise escaped from the audience. Laura looked at her father. George was frozen like a stone, listening to her words. "The first few years were tough. I failed many times and struggled financially repeatedly. But I continued to believe in my vision. I held to my conviction that environmentally friendly technology would change the future." Laura paused for a moment. "You might wonder why I hid the truth from my family." The venue became silent as still water. This was what many people most wanted to know. "It's simply because I wanted to succeed by my own power," Laura confessed honestly. "I wanted to be evaluated by the world as Laura Howard, not as someone's daughter or sister. I wanted to forge my path solely with my own ideas and efforts." She slowly turned her gaze to George. "My father told me to look at reality. Don't be a dreamer," he said. Those words were deeply etched in my heart, and I chose to quietly walk my own path." A sound like a sigh escaped from the venue. George's expression could be seen slightly changing. "Regarding my relationship with Burton International, when they faced a management crisis 3 years ago, I evaluated its potential value and employee capabilities and decided to invest. It was purely a business judgment." Laura looked at Brittany and smiled gently. "I don't think her promotion is related to that investment. Brittany has always been a talented person. Her promotion is the result of her own efforts and abilities." Brittany's expression changed complexly at those words. Anger, confusion, and a small relief seemed to be mixed together. "I'm tired of hiding," Laura said frankly. I feel there's no need to live two lives anymore. From today on, I want to show my true self to both my family and the world." When she finished her speech, loud applause erupted from the venue. Many guests surrounded Laura, seeking handshakes and business card exchanges. Meanwhile, the family showed different reactions. Martha approached her daughter and embraced her strongly. "I'm proud of you, Laura," she said with tears in her eyes. "I sense that you were achieving great success in New York all along. I didn't know the details, but I could see the confidence in your eyes." Meanwhile, Brittany seemed to have finally recovered from the shock. She approached Laura and raised her voice. "Why? Why did you keep quiet?" Anger and feelings of betrayal seeped into her voice. "Were you looking down on us? Were you laughing at my success from the shadows?" "No, Brittany," Laura answered quietly. "I was sincerely celebrating your success. You didn't need to prove anything. That was my own issue." "But Burton, was it your company? Was I employed as a charity case?" "No," Laura strongly denied. "Burton is just one of HL's investment targets. The management makes decisions independently. Your promotion is purely based on your own abilities." Brittany shook her head with an expression of disbelief. "But now, everyone will only see me as Laura Howard's sister. Don't you understand that?" "Time will resolve that," Laura said gently. "You should continue walking your own path. Keep proving yourself with your own strength." George finally approached the two. His face was still pale, but his former dignity was lost. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice was trembling. "I am your father." "Dad," Laura looked at her father with a serious gaze. "You have always denied my choices. My decision not to join a large corporation, not choosing a stable path, you treated everything as a wrong choices. That was, thinking of your best interests." "I understand," Laura responded calmly. "It was your way of showing affection. But I needed to go my own way. And this is the result." George lost his words and drooped his shoulders. It was as if the dignity of a steel George that he had cultivated for years had collapsed in an instant. "I was always ready to tell you about the company. But before that, I wanted to show you that I could succeed solely by my own power." The celebration ended earlier than planned. It had already become ambiguous whose celebration it was. Guests were preparing to leave in an excited manner, discussing the surprising events that had occurred today. The Howard family gathered in the mansion's living room. Silence dominated the room, and no one tried to speak the first word. "Word of today's events will spread throughout the industry soon," George finally spoke. "That the eldest daughter of the Howard family was a big shot in the business world." "I suppose so," Laura answered quietly. "It's a matter of pride." George's voice was slightly trembling. "But as a father, I must admit, I misjudged you." At that honest confession, tears welled up in Laura's eyes. These were the words she had been waiting for years. 6 months later, in her office on the top floor of a New York skyscraper, the HL International headquarters, Laura was gazing at the Manhattan skyline outside her window. Half a year since the truth was revealed, her life had changed significantly. There was no longer a need to live two lives. She was walking as Laura Howard both publicly and privately. The phone rang, and Laura returned to her desk. The LCD screen displayed, "Mom." "Mom, what is it?" Martha's voice was trembling. "Laura, come home immediately. Dad has had a heart attack. We're at Memorial Hospital now." That same day, Laura was on a plane to Texas. When she arrived at the hospital, her mother and sister were in the waiting room. Brittany stood up with a tired face and embraced her sister. Since the truth was revealed, their relationship had been complex, but in this crisis, the sisters needed each other. "How is he?" Laura asked in a small voice. "He's out of danger," Brittany answered. "But it was a big shock. If we had been a little later." Laura gently embraced her sister's shoulder as she choked on her words. It's going to be all right. Dad is strong. Hours later, Laura entered her father's hospital room. The man once called a steel George now lay weakly in a hospital bed. His face was pale, and he looked older than his age. "Laura," George called out in a weak voice. "You came." "Of course, Dad." Laura took her father's hand. "How could I not come?" Tears welled up in her father's eyes. I must apologize to you. For years, I misjudged your worth. I imposed my own values and didn't respect your choices. Don't think about such things now, Dad. Just focus on recovery." "No, let me say this," George said, as if mustering all his strength. "I was wrong. I didn't recognize your talent and only focused on Brittany." "That's in the past," Laura said quietly. From that day on, the Howard family began to change little by little. George's recovery was slow, but the change in his heart was remarkable. He began to celebrate both his daughter's successes equally and became eager to ask questions about Laura's business. Brittany changed too. From fearing being hidden in her sister's shadow, she began to seek her own path. She resigned from Burton and launched a new consulting company leveraging her strengths. Named Howard Consulting, that company was born from her own vision and passion. The winter a year later was mild. The entire Howard family had gathered for Christmas dinner for the first time in a long while. Luxurious dishes were laid out on the table, and the fireplace fire warmly illuminated the room. "Let's make a toast," George raised his wine glass. A gentle smile played on his face. "To my two wonderful daughters. Each has forged her own path and made us proud. And to a family that respects and supports each other," Martha added. The sound of glasses gently touching resonated. Laura and Brittany met each other's eyes and smiled quietly. The understanding and respect flowing between the sisters no longer needed words. "By the way, Laura," Brittany asked, "could you tell me more about that new environmental technology you're developing? I have some clients who might be interested." "Of course. Actually, we're conducting a public test of the prototype next month. Would you like to come and see?" "I'd love to." George watched the exchange with a calm expression. "I'm interested too. If it's all right, would you take this old man along?" Laura smiled. "With pleasure, Dad." The family bond, through setbacks and misunderstandings, had changed into something stronger and more genuine. A relationship where each recognizes their own value and respects the others. This was the true form of family.